Welcome to this episode of the Prep Athletics Podcast. I'm proud to have joining us Coach Brian Fruscio from Canterbury School. Now, Brian played at Ithaca with Blair coach Joe Mantegna, and then coached in the college ranks before going to Albany Academy and building a powerhouse there, where he had a lot of D1 players, to include Andre Jackson, who won a title with UConn and who's now starting for the Milwaukee Bucks. 3 years ago, he went to Canterbury and has been doing a great job there. So we hear about his background, we hear about Canterbury, his opinions on reclassing, what other activities kids have to do there. He has one team there, not multiple. He's in Class B, and he talks about that. And we hear his philosophy on recruiting and placing kids too. So in this conversation, the audio is a little bit off, so it's not as crisp and clear as normal. And then near the end of the conversation, a friendly woodpecker, actually he's not friendly because he's destroying my house, popped up and started hammering his head away. So if you hear that in the background, is courtesy of the mountains of Colorado here. So enjoy the podcast, and thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the Prep Athletics Podcast. This is Corey Heights.
Some battles. I'm not sure if they got us. If they did, maybe.
So you will get better as a player during that year.
So it was kind of exciting. Like, oh yeah, somebody wants me.
Brian, welcome to the podcast.
This is great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love your background. For those not watching right now on YouTube, there's a giant palm tree, sand, and waves at a beach. So that is very unlike Connecticut.
Yeah, unlike Connecticut, I'm in an office. We're redoing our college counseling offices, and so I'm in a temporary office, and this is here, and I wasn't taking it down. So
yes, good for you. Now, Brian, where'd you grow up, and what got you to basketball?
I grew up in upstate New York, Albany area, a little town, Waterville. It was really known for its arsenal and making the most cannons for World War II, and so it was two steel mills, a Ford plant in the next town. You know, our coaches we grew up to coaches with goggle dust and machinists and missing fingers and just tough World War II guys coaching our Little League and our Pop Warner and our CYO basketball. We were known as a town that per capita had the most churches and bars per capita. So, those three shifts in the steel mill kept all the businesses busy.
I bet. And I'm assuming now that town's probably not doing great with the steel mill shutting down, or they stay?
Yeah, everything shut down. Ford moved to Detroit. We still do have some abrasives. It was Norton then. We do have a couple still because of the railroad being so prominent in Waterville. So the Stanfords were building railroads, and he was from Albany, so he built one of the railroads from Waterville all the way to Northern California. And then when their son died, they named Leland Stanford University.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you got into basketball and then ended up choosing to play at Ithaca with friend of the program, Joe Mantegna. How'd you end up at Ithaca? What was the thought process to end up there?
Well, it was Utica was only really the Division I that, outside of Syracuse and St. John's at that time. Siena, of course. And so Division III became an option. St. Rose wasn't quite St. Rose then. They were still NAIA. So it really came down to St. Rose and Eckerd. And I was a small town kid. So all of a sudden Ithaca, who won every year, and winning was important. So Ithaca made sense. Union was a chance. North out of state with Coach Q was great, but Ithaca just had that draw of college campus, college town with Cornell on the other hill, Syracuse close, Elmira close, Binghamton close. So it just had a great feel. We went to postseason 4 times. I had other college teammates like John Dunn, the head coach at Marist. So, we were basketball guys, which was great for those 4 years.
Absolutely. And then what'd you do after graduation?
Right away, I shook Coach Brian Bure's hand through a fence in a men's league and told him I think I was going to St. Rose grad school. And he told me he had a better idea for me. Come see him Monday. And he had recruited me as the assistant coach at that time, 4 years earlier. And then I got a gift to be an assistant for a Hall of Fame coach and Coach Bure. And he was just amazing. He's helping GMAC now at Siena. And it just, we recruited really two guys in 2 years. So he allowed me to really learn the business and get to New York City and spend time with Coach Curran and spend time with Bobby Leckie and spend time with Tom Murray and all the legends of New York City basketball in the early 90s. And, he let me get down and just recruit guys, even though we only needed one, and just forge those relationships with Christ the King and Bishop Lachlan and Malloy. And it was just, he was a great coach and he was a great person. So I was very, very fortunate to spend those 2 years with him.
All right, you spent all that time in New York City. What makes New York City high school basketball special?
Well, at that time, it was those coaches, right? It was 1,000 wins, Coach Curran. It was Archbishop Malloy. It was Kenny Anderson. You could go to, I remember my first game, I went down to Cardinal Hayes, and I want to say it was Cardinal Hayes, Christ the King. And I sit down, I'm green as ever. I sit down and there's some guy next to me, named Rick Pitino, right? Like he's there for Mashburn, right? So like I'm shaking hands with Rick Pitino. And so I think that sort of, is what made New York City basketball so special, is the coaches, and then of course the players, and then the Al McGuires of the world always talking about coming in the 70s and just getting those players. And it sort of became that hotbed. But I always also say, as we played New York City teams when I was at other schools, I just said, New York City has a different speed, right? There's a New York City fast. And so maybe it's just because you're running to catch a subway or whatever it is, but it's definitely faster. I can promise you that.
All right, you went from the college ranks to Albany Academy. You were there for a long time, did great work there. What did you take from the college game to coaching in high school?
Well, I got that opportunity at 23, right after. So 2 years at St. Rose, and then I became a college head coach, right, at Southern Vermont College. And
right.
My goodness, talk about not knowing what you're doing. Think you know what you're doing, but not knowing what you're doing. And I just took Brian Bure and brought it to Bennington, Vermont for 5 years, and then in the high school ranks after that. And I just feel like, being at college and then going to high school and then truly understanding, what those first practices are in college and getting guys college ready, whether it be new terminology, what's their learning curve, how much can you teach them that they can retain and they can bring into that first practice? Have they been coached hard? Have they had someone raise their voice at them? Have they had a sit because of lack of execution? Just all these different things that so many guys struggle with during that freshman year. And don't know the analytics, but I feel the portal would support me on this, is that they just don't realize what is in store for them. So truly having your number one goal is to make sure guys are college ready, and you can receive that text or that call that first week of practice that just has gratitude. Thank you so much. It's new terminology, coach, but we're 3 weeks in and I haven't learned anything new other than terminology, right? So that's the ultimate compliment as a high school prep school coach, to get that text, to get that call from the kids, knowing that you did a good job with them, whether it was 4 years, whether it was 1 year, and help them in that transition to their lifelong goal, right? To be a college basketball player.
Love it. And then, okay, so you get to Albany Academy, they've learned this, new terminology, you're instilling things you learned from your college time, but you guys turn into a powerhouse during your time there. And for people that want to turn their programs into a powerhouse, do you have the recipe for that?
Well, I think you have to get good people and you have to get good players. And so we were very fortunate. We got I always give Jimmy Hart the business. Jimmy Hart was from the Albany City Rocks, was our assistant for the first 8 years of the 15 there. So that helps. But again, I always give Jimmy the business. During that time, we had Jamel Field, we had Chris Pelcher. Chris played at Iona and then New Hampshire. Jamel played at Fairfield and St. Peter's. We had Division I players, but Jimmer Fredette was in the area. Taylor Battle was in the area. So there was other guys in the area that we did not have at Albany Academy. And then I think over the course of time, Then Hamir Wright came aboard. He became a Power 5 recruit. Then you have Jay Wright, you have Tom Izzo, you have Coach Boeheim, you have people in the gym. And now all of a sudden that gets out there. So then whoever the 8th grader is, which happened to be probably at that point, Andre Jackson, August Mahoney, Marcus Fillion, Riley Mulvey at Iowa, Marcus Jackson, Albany and Siena. I think then it became, wow, these coaches are in this gym. And that's sort of how it played out, because when they were there for Hamir, they would say, we love Hamir, but who's that kid? Oh, that's August Mahoney. Or who's that kid? Oh, that's Andre Jackson. And who's that kid? Oh, that's Riley Mulvey. So I think that sort of catapulted Albany Academy into that next stratosphere, because now you have players that can go play. Gonzaga, we can go play. Bishop O'Connell, we can go play. Pinnacle, we can get out there and compete. Now, of course, it was more difficult. We'd have 5 or 6 guys, I would say, and so we would usually get beat by those teams by like 8 points, because our 7th man was a Division I shortstop or a Division I pitcher, right? So we just weren't as deep. Albany couldn't support that from a day school model. So I was very proud of what we did, and we won a lot in state, and we got a lot of exposure for guys out of state.
Love it. All right, you had your long career there at Albany, and then you made the move 3 years ago to Canterbury, right?
Yes.
What led you to this decision?
Well, I think first, I have twin sons, and they graduated from Albany Academy that June, and a lot happened that June, right? So they graduate, they were lifers, pre-K through 12. We weren't going to disrupt them at any point during that. And then my daughter, who's a junior here now, we went to the June high school exposure NCAA time at Blair. And so, we're with Uncle Joe Antagna, and my daughter starts whispering in my wife's ear, like, when can we go to a school like this? And so then, of course, my wife picks up full speed, and she's having a blast at my expense with saying, hey, Joe, can Brian come here and be the JV coach and the, just an assistant maintenance guy? And they're having a blast, for 48 hours at my expense. And then all of a sudden, July, Coach Bodnay is leaving here to replace a past player of mine, Josh Pelletier, at UMBC. And now, even though Joe was in, I think, Rwanda at the time with South Sudan, the head of school and the athletic director here, husband, wife, the Stones were Blair people. So, all of a sudden, it became a viable option. And the family, I moved them in 2 weeks from their lifelong houses. So it was an adjustment.
All right. Now you finally got to Canterbury. Now you've been there for, this is your 3rd year. Give us your pitch. Tell us about the school. Tell us about your program.
Well, I love our program. I love the school. We got here and we felt like, oh my goodness, like these people are so nice. And the joke in our house became, all right, when's that end, right? Honeymoon period. Like, when's that end? Like, come on. It's the same. Like, there's just such kind people at Canterbury, and they take their position as dorm parents and as faculty members and as community members really serious. And, the kindness, if you're going to send your child to Canterbury, whether they're basketball or wherever, they are going to be looked after and they are going to be cared for, and their advisors are going to be involved. And, we go to the hospitals with the kids who need x-rays for sprained ankles. And not that everyone doesn't. I'm not saying people don't, but, it might not just be the nurse, right? It might be your dorm parent, or it might be all those people that are part of your life here, that truly care about you. So I have found all the schools in New England are great. Like, they're great. Like, and they got great buildings. They're beautiful, great people, dedicated educators. It's a vocation, but I just find our kindness is special here at Canterbury. Like, we really, truly care about the whole person. And then that goes into our basketball programs and our pillars and gratitude, and joyfulness and grit and selflessness. And then we try to bring that out on campus. So when they're talking to a dining hall staff, they're saying, thank you. And they're doing all the things, and they're not walking past a piece of paper without picking it up. And, they're just sort of being somebody significant on our campus.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Now, give me a scenario here. Let's say a parent of a 10th grader reaches out to you, right? And they want to come to your school, and they don't know whether they want to reclass or not, because to a lot of kids that, and parents that don't know how the prep school world works and transferring, they see reclass as like a step back and having to repeat classes and whatnot. So what is your take? Like, do you suggest kids reclass, or do they have the option at Canterbury to do 11th and 12th and then post-grad? And do you care which one they do? Like, what's your explanation on that to families?
Well, they can't graduate from here and then post grad, so that's not an option. So what I would say, if they're in limbo, I would say come in as a 10th grader, or 11th grader, say in that case, and then in the first couple months they got to sort of make a decision. Now they could decide to reclass before graduation, so they could do 2 11th grades. We have enough electives and everything. My son did that, actually. My son came here as an 11th grader. He separated his shoulder, torn labrum. And so he did 2 junior years and a senior year here because he wanted those 2 years of football. So it can happen that way. So if they're dipping their toe, which I'm not thrilled with, but I like people who go to the end of the pool and jump in. But if they're dipping their toe, there are options here. And of course, as you well know, and everybody listening knows, the level of talent creates the level of opportunities and different scenarios. So if we have a real good one and a real tall one, we always say higher education. The higher they are, the more we want to educate them. So if he's a big soft and he's talented academically and we feel he can really add to our community, because we want to coach good kids. We want low maintenance at its height. We want no maintenance if possible. And the better the player, the more it gets to low maintenance than no maintenance. So, and that's what college coaches want. So it's not like we're following a formula or we're saying something to somebody that isn't going to translate. Well, of course we understand maturity, but we definitely want young guys. I love the young also. We have guys, Jared Strand's going to play for us for 3 years now, and David Dix for 2 or 3, and Andreo Ash for 2. And the difference of them in practice right now in comparison to, a PG or a repeat junior is entirely different. So that's not my model. That's a Blair model. Joe always said, fill in with some PGs, but really those reclass softs and reclass juniors are the key to your success as a school and as a team.
Yeah. And then do you guys have one team or multiple teams?
We have one team on the varsity level, which is we have 15 guys. I would say we have 10 basketball first guys, and then we have 5 basketball second or third guys. We have a golf first, we have a football first, we have a lacrosse first. So those are sort of our, fill in our roster, help us get better, talented athletes, committed. So really helps us. But yeah, one team. Then we do have a JV, which is now becoming a little bit more for the freshmen and softs we have 3 guys right now that were on the JV that are on the varsity roster. So, it can be a way for a young guy to come in. They can practice with us a little bit too, and then go down and play JV games. I think it's real important that freshmen and softs get on the court. And when you're talking 19, 20-year-olds, it's really hard for a 14, 15-year-old to compete. It's just one of those things. So not to say we can't, the young guy couldn't. Donovan Mitchell did when he was here for the first 2 years of his prep school experience. But again, we're talking about one guy, and I wasn't even here then. So, so it doesn't normally happen.
Gotcha. And then what's your strategy, Brian, with placing kids in college? Like, let's say a kid commits to you in March. When do you start talking to the family about, what the goals are? When do you start reaching out to coaches? Walk me through your process.
So right away, I think, that's why they're making the decision. And then June is the first big opportunity. We're going to play 8 games in that June live period. And I think that's where we need to let everyone know where we're going to be and where that young guy is and get eyeballs on him. And at that point, and we talk about it all the time, like, there is some pressure, right? Because if you play awful, then you're exposed. And if you play great, then you get exposure. So it's one of those things where we have those conversations with the guys that they have to, not only it's great that we're contacting all these teams, but now you have to go out and produce. Like you have to have a high motor. You have to rebound the basketball. You have to keep someone in front of you. And I'll always kid around with it. Did you notice I haven't talked about scoring yet? Like you have to compete, right? So I think this generation in general thinks that playing hard equals competing. And it doesn't.
Right.
It's just playing hard is the price of admission. Like competing is the separator, right? If you knock that guy back before you go and rebound it, and it's a Tom Izzo rebound, well, that might catch someone's attention. Like if you're diving on a loose ball or sacrificing your chest and taking a charge, people think, oh, I hit 5 threes in a row, that catches someone's eye. Yes, it might, but I tell you what, that taking that sacrificing your body in a June showcase and taking a charge in the chest that also might get someone's attention. Or that loose ball that might not even be a 50-50 ball, it might be an 80-20 against, and you lay out and you get it. Like now all of a sudden they're looking for your number and your name because how hard you're competing, not just playing hard.
I love that you say that, Brian, because most kids in this generation are always worried about the points, like you just mentioned. But there's 9, 10 other things you can do on the court to affect the game and help your team that college coaches are looking at. And I actually went to an event with sat with a former D1 head coach, and he was watching very intently with the warm-up lines at an AAU event. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, sometimes these kids don't get a good open shot during a game, so I want to see their form. And I want to see their athleticism. I want to see if they can slam it. I want to see how they take off, their footwork. So you're always being watched. And I tell kids, just be paranoid. Just pretend every time you're playing, there's a little closed caption camera in the corner of the gym. And that camera, yeah, it's a Truman Show, but going to your dream school's coach's desk where he can always tune in to see what you're doing, how hard you're going, what kind of character you've got. So I love that you emphasize that with your team because more people need to say it, that it's more than just scoring. So thank you for doing that.
No, it's because, again,
it's the truth.
You can't win. Yeah. And again, you're going to go as a freshman and then you're going, every day is game day except game day, right? You're not going to play a bunch. So you better be ready every day for practice, trying to take somebody's minutes and then grow your role. No one talks to kids about how to grow your role. You're not playing any minutes. How are you going to get 2 minutes? And then how are you going to grow your role to 5 minutes? And you know what? It comes down to guarding somebody. It comes down to, diving on a loose ball. It comes down to, executing what the coach just said when you're standing at the end of the line. Listen, coaches will say stuff and they like guys who execute what they say. So listen, right? So you need to be a listener, as you go into college and you want to build trust with that coach, then execute what he says. And then all of a sudden, he's going to like you. He's going to say, wow, I like that kid. Every time I tell him I tell the group they need to make sure they get a backside rebound. He never misses. And every time I tell him to be, our team to be in help, we got starters who don't get in help, but that kid's always in help, right? So how do you grow your role? How do you get your name into the meetings? A lot of kids don't know that college coaches meet, the staffs meet once a day or twice a day. How do you get your name in a meeting, right? How do you do it at such a high level that GA or that last assistant brings your name up? How about the GA that says, hey, do you know that Joey took 1,000 shots yesterday? Right? How are you getting your name in that?
Love it. Now, the kids get to campus, they do open gyms in the fall, but at Canterbury, are kids required to play other sports or do other events besides basketball?
Yes, but most of our guys, the fall sport is strength training conditioning, right? So our guys get bigger physically. They get in shape. I'm thrilled. I just sent a big email to our strength conditioning coaches, thanking them. Well, again, gratitude's our North Star. So thanking them for having our guys in shape and just doing all that they could do. Guys look better, bigger. They talk nutrition, they talk hydration, they talk all the things they're going to hear when they get to the next levels. So, we're very fortunate. Yes, you have to play multiple sports. So a lot of our guys will, that's the fall sport, or it's considered an activity actually. And then they'll do basketball. And then the spring, seniors usually do track, because they're done with their careers and they don't have and I find that our juniors that are traveling, they will be managers for maybe a JV team that doesn't play a bunch on the weekends, or they will do the track and have an open and honest and transparent conversation with the track coach that here's where I can be with us, with you, and here's where I can't be. And so that's where, I find we are able to navigate and our school is able to navigate because we are only 350 students. So, multiple sport athletes are important as they are in our basketball program. Filling in those, if one of our basketball guys tweaks an ankle, we're relying on a lacrosse guy, right? So we're relying on, a football guy. So those multiple sport athletes are important. So that's sort of how it would play out for a basketball player here for playing two sports and an activity.
Gotcha. And, a lot of the questions that come up from my clients are, what is how much time can Billy or Johnny get in the gym, right? Because a lot of my clients are gym rats. And tell me about, the access kids can have to your gym. Like, when do they have access to the weight room? Do you have a gun? Walk me through that, because there seems to be an arms race now, Brian, of how many hours kids can get into the gym. And I'm always a quality over quantity guy, but would love to hear your take on this.
We have a 6 a.m. group that comes in. Security lets them in. They have access. Our players' names are with security, so they have access anytime they have free time. If I'm on campus, which I do live on campus, I'll come over, open it. My assistant coach, Justin Feliz, here, he'll open it. So our guys have access early morning, and then any break in class, if they have a double free, they can get over and get a couple hundred shots on our gun. So they can get here. The weight room is open 6 a.m. Till 8 p.m. when study hall starts. So they can have access all year round to the gym, the weight training facility, and our guns. So and a lot of guys also, like, even in season, because I tell them they got, we do just so many free throws, but they got to spend time doing their free throws. They got to spend time, getting their shots. The reason they're so sharp when the season starts is because they are putting that extra time in and they are getting their own shots on their time. So what our guys usually do, we get done with practice about 5:45. They get over, they have dinner in 6 to 6:30. And then they don't have to check in the dorm until 7:45. So a lot of guys use that hour to come back to the gym after practice and get extra shots. And then the seniors free up. They have Tuesday nights now and Friday nights where they don't have to check in until 10 o'clock. So the seniors do have senior privileges already, just Tuesday, Friday. And that'll open up once we come back from Christmas break to probably 4 nights a week. They'll have open access to, and they can get in the gym any of those times, full access. Almost the only difference between us and the college is they don't have a key card to get in. Someone has to let them in. So,
Gotcha.
And they can find that at all times.
All right. You mentioned you have a couple postgrads a year, and walk me through what the academic requirements are for a postgrad.
Well, it really comes down to their goals too. Like, if it's someone that's coming that wants an Ivy or a Patriot or a high academic, they're going to take, still take the SUPAs, the Syracuse University Project Advance, or they're going to take the APs. But yeah, we usually want to see, we're in the 3.0s and the 3.5s and we want to see students. We want, back to no maintenance. Do I think we can help a kid that maybe help them put a little shine on a not so great transcript? Yes. But what's the value added? Like, is he a great kid? Is he going to be in a bunch of clubs? How is he just a star of a person? Like, what's the value added, right? So we pay attention, not only the academics, but you know what, how you act in line, how you act when we're all together in school play, like how you behave when you're walking cross campus. So it's not just a academic piece, although Mr. DeLorco does a great job. It's great to have an enrollment director that played college football. And he does it. He gets it. And he was an assistant basketball coach at that Blair Academy. So that also helps. So again, it's one of those pieces where, yes, we do have a academic requirement. We're looking for a certain student that can handle our work. We don't want to overwhelm somebody, but we also, we do value people.
Love it. Now, a big thing a lot of my clients are wanting are, the opportunity to play in the Ivy Leagues or a high academic D3. And some families are worried about we got to go to this school because this school has sent so many kids to that level before. This school has too. This school's got a brand name. What's your opinion on that? Do you need to go to, one of these places that have sent a lot more kids to these academic schools? Do you need to go to one of those to get to one of these college programs, or does it matter in your opinion?
Yes. I mean, I think it does help. TI is the greatest, so Andover helps. I was in Germany as an assistant coach for Joe at the Albert Schweitzer games with TI, so we go way back. And one of the baseball coach in Andover, I was actually his RA at St. Rose. So, we go way back. So yes, I mean, Andover, Exeter, that's great. But listen, I had 2 Ivy League captains from Albany Academy too. So, August Mahoney was a captain at Yale on last year's team, and the year before that, Marcus Filling was a captain at Cornell, and he's now the director of basketball ops at William and Mary, for Coach Earl. So, yes, it does play a role, I guess, as you're putting your pros and cons on a piece of paper. But if you're good enough, James Jones will come knocking. Tommy Amaker will come knocking. So, you know what, it's almost like that youth basketball. It's politics. No, it's not politics. The best players play. And most times it is the coach's son that's pretty decent. And so it's not politics. James does not pay attention to that level of basketball politics. If you're good enough to help them beat Auburn, you get an invitation. So again, let's just be good enough and not worry about what school, we go to. Where's our fit, right? So I talk to all our families. Even my office is on the admissions trail. So I step out with hockey players, with squash players, with field hockey players, and talk to their parents. And really, it's 2 things I always make sure I say to the kids is, this is the time to be really honest with your family. Don't try to read the room. Like, you found your fit, you found the place you like. Don't give in to your parents' pressure on where they want you to go, because you have to live it. They don't have to live it. They have to pay for it, but they don't have to live it. And, so that's a huge part, is finding your fit. And then we also, talk about how many teams there are. Are you going to get opportunity? What does opportunity look like? For us, you're a PG. Jackson O'Brien, perfect example. He's a PG. He comes out and lays 3 consecutive eggs in games. Guess what? He's starting game 4, right? So he's not being moved. He's it's his one chance. He's on a one-way street. He's trying to, have these colleges look like we got to get. He's really good, and he's good enough, right? He just had some couple tough games, maybe tough matchups. Who knows? But we're going back to him. He's not getting buried and waving a towel the rest of the year. He's someone we're going to rely on all year. So, that's the other piece, is where is your fit and what is your opportunity? That's the things that I feel that these young guys really need to focus in on.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that. The NEPSAC class system, right? You've got all different classes. When families reach out, they don't know how this the class systems work and I got to educate them. And I know you've got to educate folks a lot, but does it matter what class a kid plays in when they come in NEPSAC?
I would say for the elite of the elite, yes. Yes. Yeah, you want to be at Brewster, right? You want to be, I get that. But after that, no, I don't. I mean, we would be a double A, right? We're Class B, and I feel like our administration, knows how, good having a good basketball team is. I feel we would be a double A. We can't travel on Wednesday and Saturdays to Northern Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Like we have Cheshire. What are we going to play 15 games against Cheshire? To get back for dinner, to not miss lunch and get back for dinner. Like there's just not enough double A's in this neck of the woods for us to be a double A. So you know what? So then they go by enrollment. So guess what? We're a B. And you know what? We got really good players. And Rivers is amazing. And Millbrook made sure we got, early tea time in the spring. And, there's good teams with Division I players on almost every team we play against. There's a Division I recruit. There's high-level college basketball players. There's really good coaching. Like you are no longer playing checkers. You better show up to play chess. Because if you don't, you're in trouble, right? So that's the key. That's the key, to
Interesting. Okay. What do you see as the future of prep school basketball? Like 5 years from now, what do you think is going to happen?
I think we'll start getting a lot of younger guys. I'm getting calls from people all the time, on the prep thing because they're seeing it work for so many kids that now they feel like they can't be a high school player. So why not be a hybrid? I call it a hybrid because, again, we're getting guys that are 19, so they would have completed their freshman year. So are they a college freshman that is going in the portal and then you get them for 4 years, right? So that's the piece where I find it's sort of like prep school is going to be that hybrid model of high school and freshman in college, a model that I feel really helps, with the portal. Thank God we don't have the COVID year anymore, but so that was the double whammy. So now all of a sudden, I feel it helps. It helps kids and it helps because kids are in a time during high school where they got to decide whether they like this or they love it. Because once you're getting barked at and you're getting demanded and someone is so supposedly taking the fun out of it, then you're deciding if you love basketball or if you like basketball, right? So our analogy this past week was we have a lot of guys who maybe, were at the algebra or geometry level of basketball IQ. And now all of a sudden they're in a calc, BC class. And not only is that, but now the teacher is over their shoulder for a 2-hour test a day, yelling at them, demanding them, complimenting them, and their heads are spinning, right? So why not do that now instead of, 2 or 3 years from now or next year? So sometimes if you have a demanding high school coach, and it can be football. Believe me, I'm not saying I'm the end all be all. Like it's so many great coaches out there. So, it could be baseball, but that's the toughest class at your school. Because you 2-hour test every day with someone over your desk crushing you for the 2 hours, demanding of you, having standards for you, and you're running and you can't breathe and your legs are shaking and your chest is compressing. Tough class. That's a tough class. So you find out really, really quick if you like it or you love it. And do you want to continue that for 4 years of college when it amps up.
Yeah, and about once a year, I've got a client that goes to prep school for a post-grad year, and they decide, I'm just going to go to a college to be a student because they realize it's about once a year. And I'm happy when that happens, Brian, because they're not going to pick a school based on something they don't love, right? They're actually going to pick a place that they're going to enjoy their experience, play club ball. So to me, that's a good thing when that happens too, because they realize I don't want to take this test every day for 4 years.
No,
right?
listen, that's not a good test unless you love it. And then then it's just like, because again, even when we say, joyfulness as one of our pillars, right? People hear that, they say, "Oh, I love joy," right? "Oh, this is great." No, like joyfulness is like the burning in your legs when you're in stance, the compression of your chest, and the contact, and the diving on loose balls, and the competing, and your teammates picking you up, and just loving to compete, and that's brings such joy to you. It's not silly, right? So like people hear joy, they think silly laughter, they think of that as being joy. No, it's like accomplishing a goal and feeling that joy, and going through the process of feeling that joy. So we have to explain our joyfulness, because it can be tricky, because kids hear silliness and laughter, and then all of a sudden they say, what train, the 7 train just ran me over. So we explain the joyfulness piece.
Brian, what's it take to play at the D1 level if you're a guard?
Your guard, you have to be able to, of course, handle the ball. That no one's going to recruit you if you can't get to where you need to get to. You have to make everybody better. You have to be I think you're a pass first guy, but I think you can't be predictable, right? So you can be a pass first guy, and some guys take it to that next level and then they become predictable. Rajon Rondo comes to mind in that he was so good with his pass fakes that he would get 8 points on layups, because he was never predictable, but he was pass first, right? So I think that is so key. Being able to make an open shot is helpful, but I think if you just play so hard and you can handle the basketball and you can make your team better. And again, you got to be able to be a backup guard before you're a starting guard, and grow your role and know what that takes. And you got to make shots. Like, some of these 2 guards, like you got to be shooting 40%. Like you have to be a maker, not a taker. Like you can't be starting the other team's fast break, 70% of the time, because then you're not helping. So, you really got to work on what we like to call your game. Your game shot has to be at a speed where you're shooting at the gun. You can't be hurried up, right? You have to understand what your game speed is in order to make the 70% of shots you're making on the gun, right? Well, why are you shooting 70 on the gun and 30 in games? Well, because they're speeding you up, and you're not accounting for that. And now you're taking a bad shot because they're speeding you up. So you got to find what shots you can take at your speed that has you making the 70% on the gun. That's the things we talk about with our guys. So it's the first time, they're hearing, I'll never tell a kid he can't shoot. I'm going to tell him what shots he might like to shoot, but I'm never going to tell him he can't shoot. Of course, we want you to shoot open shots. Just know who you are, know how you add to us. Because if you're taking it for you and not for us, then that usually doesn't sit well with us or with your next team and your college coach.
Right. Love it. Thanks for sharing that. Last big question here. You coached Andre Jackson at Albany Academy, who won a title with UConn, got drafted in the NBA. What did he possess that got him to the NBA level? Because it is, lightning in a bottle. It's very tough to achieve, but you were there with him, saw him in practice, saw him grow. What did he have that made him special?
First off, his family is absolutely spectacular. The Altieri family is amazing. His dad, Andre Jackson Sr., is a good guy. So, like, when he would go home and probably complain about me, they'd be like, be quiet. Like, we're on this path. And they allowed me to be part of his solutions, which was always great to be part of that. And so I think that's number one. Number two, he started as a freshman with us. And so Hamir was the Power 5 player. So guess what? Get it off your fingertips. Like, you know what? Turn the ball over. You're coming out. Like, you know what? Give up a backside rebound. You're coming out. Not dive. Don't dive on a loose ball. That's fine. You're coming out. Like, so when he got to Danny, I think, and Danny had would take him out after a mistake. He, okay, that's sort of what happens to you when you're a freshman, right? So, like, I think going through that with us was very, very important. And then, playing with August Mahoney and playing with Riley Mulvey, a young big, and playing with his brother. And, I just think, and then his senior year, I found he made the really huge, is he stayed at Albany Academy instead of going to like Lalu or going to another, big Nike school. He stayed to play with his brother, so family first, which was great. And then he also, we talked about like, you got to know how to, be the guy that has to score 26 and get 14 rebounds, and know that you have to get that every game, and the other team's trying to stop you. So like, you have to go through that process. He felt like if he went to one of those other schools, he might have fallen back into a role spot and not been able to take that spotlight. And I think right now in the NBA, now that he's in the starting lineup and now that he's playing more minutes, being that role player as a freshman at Albany Academy really helped him. Like, because now it's not Hamir Wright, but it's Giannis and Dame, right? So guess what? Don't shoot too much and get the ball off your fingertips and dive on loose balls and rebound and guard the other team's best player and waste your fouls on him and not them wasting their fouls. And, I think his understanding of team and win first was created at Albany Academy. Of course, Danny took it like he does everything else to another level. And I think that's Andre Jackson in a bottle. And why he will be successful is he's an absolutely amazing person. And, we're trying to make sure he keeps his confidence up through some of the ups and downs. But he's already been through it twice. He's been through it in high school in adjusting. He's been through it at UConn when Book Knight and Cole and those guys were, sort of the go-to guys, and he waited his time to sort of elevate himself up. So that's been really, really fun to watch. And he stays in touch, and we send each other. I try to send him some, inspirational stuff I might see, and he always responds, and he's amazing. He's just an amazing kid.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Brian. We got a woodpecker beating on my house, so if you hear that in the background, I'm going to be banging on the walls after this. So note that if you're listening, and Brian, that's our friendly mountain woodpecker. All right,
probably
quick
a
hitters.
Referee after me. It's probably refereeing is their second life or third life after me. So
there you go.
I'll take the full brunt of that.
There you go. All right, I just need to let them know there's no worms in our house. All right. Quick hitters here. Best player you've ever coached against at Albany and then at Canterbury.
Best player ever coached against. RJ Barrett was an easy one. I could have picked anyone from that team. I'm awful with names, but I'm just, what, the Rivers, just all the Rivers guys were so good, and Keith does such a great job that, they were, and they play so well together. So not only are they talented, but then they just stick to their strengths. I feel that team and that group is the most formidable that I've seen in prep school.
Your favorite movie?
I'm a Godfather guy.
Okay.
Rocky 1 is brilliant in so many ways. So I'm just thinking of all the ones that I rewatch, right? So if in order for it to be your favorite, you got to be willing to rewatch it. At any point that you run into it, you have to be ready to rewatch it. So those are two that come to mind that would, signify a little Italian American.
All right. And then lastly, what are your hobbies when you're not coaching?
Yeah, I'm one of those obsessed guys.
Okay.
I enjoy my family. And now I use my time now. I follow a lot of different Instagrams, and one guy said, he lived near his parents and he moved away. And so that's what happened to me. And now my dad turns 80 next week. I try to make sure, get back and see mom and dad. I was able to see them. I took for granted I could see them every day, and I didn't. I would see them 3 times a week. And now being here in Connecticut, if we only get together at Thanksgiving and Christmas and, maybe another holiday, like how many more times am I going to see my mom and dad, right? So right. I think now that is the case, I try to get home a little bit more for no apparent reason other than to, get the mail from the New York house or, just see them because you don't know how many times, you have left when they start to get to a certain age. And so, and I owe everything to them. I'm a first generation college student, so I owe everything to them. And so, that's sort of my hobby now is my family and balancing. My oldest son is assistant for Mike McDonald at Damon now. I'm really proud of him. And he just got engaged last week, and I was on the call list, which I appreciate because I'm not always on the call list when it doesn't, involve money or something. So yeah, he just so he's at the beginning of his career. I'm on year 35, and he's at the beginning. And I'm thrilled he's with a really good guy in Mike McDonald too. Mike's one of the class people in college basketball, and that's not always the case.
Love it. There's a statistic. I think you spend 90% of the time with your parents between like birth and 18 years old. And then after that, it's like 10% or less. So,
Yeah, I try to talk to my mom mostly every day. Still the greatest. Her genius is her love for her children. You just try to find whatever person is in your life, just try to find their genius, whatever that is, and to cherish that genius.
Absolutely. Is there anything you want to mention that we didn't touch on in this conversation, Brian?
No, I'm thrilled to be on the podcast just because, you've really helped us, all 3 years, just, and now all of a sudden with, some of your guys, it's so great to just be part of this world. It's new to me. So, just sort of breaking in and year 3, I just really appreciate the time because again, it's really important to a lot of young people that are coming to prep school basketball and in particular Canterbury. So we try to get them ready. We try to make them college ready.
Love it. Brian, thanks so much for coming on and good luck this season. Coach Brian Fruscio from Canterbury School joining us today. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us on all the podcasting platforms, YouTube, and go to prepathletics.com to learn more about the prep school world and to sign up for our monthly newsletter. Brian, thanks so much for joining us today.
This was great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care.